Good. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight for Cooking with the Cap Times, featuring Chef Francesco Mangano of Osteria Papavero. Hi, Chef.
Hello.
I'm Chelsea Dekanjarovic, the Director of Marketing and Social Media at the Cap Times. I'll pass it off to our food editor, Lindsay Christian, soon. But first, I want to thank our sponsors for helping make this video event series possible. Our presenting sponsor for the first month ever is Pasquale's Cantina. This is new this month, and going forward, Cooking with the Cap Times is now presented by Provisions Market, located at Pasquale's on East Washington. Stop by the newly opened market after work and browse their selection of imported and locally produced foods and beverages, or grab some of your prepared Pasquale's favorites for an easy and delicious dinner at home. Visit pasqualescantina.com/provision for more hours and more info. We can drop that link in the chat. Our official kitchen sponsor, where we are this evening and every month, is Kessenix. For over 90 years, Kessenix has provided Madison and Dane County with quality products and outstanding customer service. Stop by their showroom to shop like a chef, because they're always open to the public. You can visit kessenix.com for more info. And our official beverage. We've got 8 in-person guests tonight, and I'll give a shout out to them quickly. They are enjoying some of that Bira Lucana Premium Pilsner. This classic European Pilsner style lager has a well-balanced hop flavor and malty sweetness. Superb with any Italian dish. We hope you got some to enjoy while watching tonight's event, but we're also giving away a few 12-packs to lucky viewers at home. There's an entry link that will drop in the chat for a drawing that we'll do after tonight's demonstration is over. Click that to enter, and Chef, you gotta be 21 to win, or over, right?
I am.
A quick plug that if you post any pictures online tonight on social media, please tag the Cap Times on Instagram and Twitter. We would love to see them. And I want to thank any Cap Times members for joining us tonight and for your continued support of local journalism and our newsroom. If you're not a member, you can become one at membership.captimes.com. We will put that link in the chat. And drum roll, you guys, because keep an eye out for our publisher Paul Fanlin's column tomorrow that will break some pretty big Cap Times news. We're so excited. I lost my place. Cap Times members got the news today. Without further delay, I will now pass it off to Lindsay, because my God, I've talked enough. Lindsay is one of Wisconsin's foremost food writers and critics. Lindsay,
hi.
Thank you guys, enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you, hello. Hello, thank you for being here.
Hello, absolutely.
Yes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I wanted to open up, first of all, I've got wine here. It's a little perk of the job. I wanted to open up by asking you to just talk a little bit about your culinary philosophy. Mm-hmm. And we've talked before about how, you're not trying to reinvent any wheels. You like to go with some classics.
Yeah, so there's a lot of classics out there, whether you talk about Italian, French, Southeast Asian, South American, doesn't matter. That seems to get lost, and we're in a time where everything's fast, and so everybody needs something maybe different from 20 years ago. They go on the internet, they find a recipe, and they cook from it. Maybe cookbooks are getting a little lost in between that. But there is a lot of knowledge that with the older generation is kind of getting lost. So the idea of an osteria is to propose seasonal and traditional recipes that are being cooked for generations. That doesn't mean they have to be boring, they can be updated. In fact, I think even tradition needs an innovation every once in a while to keep and being a tradition, otherwise it just gets stale. But we are here to do a recipe that is very grounded into Bologna and seasonal products of what would be in October, the month of October in Bologna, where I come from. So.
Yeah. One of the things I've always loved about Papavero is the specials board, and I pretty much exclusively order off the specials board now. But also you'll have like the plates where it's like 4 different veggie preps or 4 different fish preps or whatever. And I love the mixed grill too. You know? But that gives you just a ton of flexibility, right? But you still have a little bit of that structure.
It does, because well, it's true that we change the menu every other month, more or less, but when you go into a new month, and if you're following what nature does, typically there is more than 1, 2, 5, 10 vegetables available. They are constantly changing, and in September we're using the last of the peppers and the tomatoes and the eggplants. Then the squash starts coming in, then the pumpkin, and we're getting now into the fall ones, fall vegetables. So there is more to display than just a couple of vegetables. So that's why we have an assorted vegetable platter. There's more to display. Even seafood has seasons. But most people maybe don't know, but it's like that. Times where fish reproduces, and it's easier to find it available on the market. So we try to stay seasonal with that, and we try to propose as much offers that as much as one offer that we can to the people that come for dinner every night. So.
The gnocchetti that you're going to be making tonight, you can do a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah, so gnocchi is another thing that some people ask me often when I do classes. First of all, why I don't do gnocchi so often, but also why I don't do potato gnocchi. And I always say, well, gnocchi in Italian is just a translation to what the American word would be for dumplings.
Yeah.
So you don't just do potato gnocchi, or you can do potato gnocchi, but maybe in Bologna we do this, but maybe near Venezia they do pumpkin gnocchi in the Veneto region. Maybe in Florence they do ricotta and spinach gnocchi that they call gnudi. Maybe in Tyrol region in Trentino, that's 3 hours really from Bologna, it's not that far away, but they make speck and country style bread gnocchi, because that's what they have available. So gnocchi is just another word for dumplings. You can go different regions and find different things, and tonight just happens to be potato gnocchi.
Yeah, one of the reasons I really liked it, Katie, my editor, is here, and she mentioned that she had a lot of potatoes coming in, and I still have a bunch from our CSA as well, and so I was thinking just something to use all that up, to use it up.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm going to ask as we start getting going here is how long you can store them, like if you can freeze them and stuff. Like, can I do a big gnocchi making session and then?
Gnocchi still is a big debate when you go into a restaurant, and chefs have different opinions. If you talk about the tops, and talking about Thomas Keller, sometimes he recommends in his books that you can make gnocchi, you can freeze them individually, put them in a bag, and take them out of the freezer. I don't do that. I had horrible experiences with that. I think they usually melt in the water. I prefer when I make gnocchi to put them on a tray that's well floured. Semolina flour is even better if you have some of that around, and try to use them the same day. Or you can store them still or refrigerated on a tray with a little bit of flour for the next day.
Okay.
I would try not to push it more than that, because gnocchi keeps absorbing smells that could be in your refrigerator very easily, and they also keep absorbing flour from that tray, so they keep on getting drier and drier and drier. So if you have to make them the same day. Try to use them the same day. If you need to stretch it till the second day, go ahead. I wouldn't keep them more than that, and I would keep them refrigerated, not frozen.
Hearing about them absorbing flavors, it reminds me of how at Halloween you don't want to combine your chocolate candy with your other candy, because the chocolate will just absorb all the flavors and taste really weird. I was like, it's Halloween appropriate. So use your gnocchi soon.
Yep, sooner the better. Yep.
All right. So what did you bring here to get us started off?
So put gnocchi. Potatoes for sure, since that's what we're doing tonight. I try to use a ratio, and we already riced these potatoes tonight, just to make things a little easier. My ratio is for about 2 pounds of potatoes, and I try to use the yellow ones. I have a preference for that. They're maybe less starchy than the russets, but they have more flavor.
Okay.
So that's why I use yellow potatoes. 2 pounds of potatoes, preferably peeled, then being cooked. You can cook them in the oven, or you can cook them even in a microwave. Some people do that. I do that for other preparations. Or you can boil them and then drain them and then peel them. 2 pounds of that, about 150 to 200 grams of flour. So that would be about 6-7 ounces of flour. AP flour works. Pinch of salt and a couple eggs, all eggs.
You said 150 to 200 grams of flour. When do you know if you need more versus less?
Well, that's the potatoes are going to tell you that.
Okay.
So if the potatoes, once they rise, I like to let them rest a little bit. I don't add flour right away, because what happens, potatoes are hot. They have a bunch of steam that is trapped, which is water. So if you put more flour, you keep on adding flour when they're still hot. You keep on adding flour and flour in the water, and flour and the potatoes can turn gluey pretty fast.
Yes, yeah.
And gummy. So I try to let them rest, which I did in this case. But then the potato itself will tell you, and that's why potato gnocchi can be finicky sometimes. If the potato itself was a little more wet, it will absorb more flour. You need more flour to get the consistency that you want. If the potato is a little drier, you need a little less than that ratio of flour than I gave you.
Got it.
So that you're gonna need
Really quick for
Yeah.
you to continue on. This is an active online audience, so I think we're
Love
gonna
it.
have questions. Peggy is watching at home, and they asked, what about frozen gnocchi, or is that terrible?
I've used frozen gnocchi before. I have.
Frozen gnocchi you can do. I'm just saying you shouldn't make your own and freeze them. So if you buy them frozen from a reputable source, then go ahead and use them. They probably just kill them with starch though, because starch keeps them together a little easier than potato would. So yeah, go ahead and use them if you're buying from somebody else. If you make your own, again, I'll stay away from frozen gnocchi. Thanks.
Like, I'm good. I've seen them like on the store shelves too. Just like, is it dried gnocchi?
Well, it could be dried. A lot of packages nowadays just come sort of in this vacuum pack container.
Yeah.
Italy has a lot of those. When we don't make our own, sometimes we find a good source from Italy, and we do the same thing. We import them. We do a lot of pasta at the restaurant. All the ice cream, all the desserts. Sometimes we don't have time to get to the potato gnocchi preparation, which is time consuming. We do enough customers that don't allow us to be, we will be making gnocchi every day, essentially, from
Yeah.
scratch. We don't have the time to do that, especially now we have all this stuff situation with COVID, and so we're trying to go back to normal. That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
so,
for
but,
sure.
Yeah, you can find a good source and buy them, usually imported, I would suggest, rather than domestic, but that's just my preference.
Nice. All right.
All right,
You
so we
made a
have
little well.
Make a little well. You can whisk the eggs in the middle a little bit. It's kind of the same thing, same way you would make pasta. If you were at home, if you were a grandma from Bologna, then has been making this for years and years. I'm the grandma in this case. And this was all obviously measured. Like I said, though, you need to kind of look at how the potatoes react absorbing on that flour. I made a well with the eggs in the middle. I put a little flour at the bottom with my rice potatoes. Now I kind of try to get it together without, hopefully not mixing too much, though sometimes it will mix the potato gluey. And also, if you can help yourself with a spatula or a band scraper, like somebody calls it, that also helps so you don't get your end messy, like eggy and covering potatoes.
One of my
So.
favorite kitchen tools.
Yeah, I
Full
mean, it's great and useful for many things. It's pastry, pasta, pizza. You're making your pizza from scratch, you're mixing. And you also want a surface like this one, like wood, is a little porous, so it will absorb some of the extra moisture that may be sitting with those potatoes. It looks a little wet to me, so I'm gonna add a
Chef
little
and
more flour.
Lindsay, we got a slacker at home. Mike said he must have missed how many eggs?
Oh,
Two, right?
2 eggs. 2 eggs for 2 pounds of flour. So basically one
No
egg.
slackers.
One egg for every pound of potatoes, essentially. A pinch of salt. Somebody puts a drizzle of olive oil. They say it makes the dough more elastic. I don't typically bother, but you don't need that necessarily. And like I was saying, the wood helps. Don't try to do this on a wood or a metal bench or a metal counter, because all this potato in the starch will start sticking and make sort of this layer of glue, which is really hard to clean, but also makes your gnocchi preparation really messy and difficult to work with, because you're constantly trying to fight that metal that's kind of sticking, making the potato stick to it.
It
So
almost reminds me of scone dough. Like, it has this kind of crumbly texture to it.
So, almost there. It's a little wet. We're just gonna add a little bit more flour. I brought extra flour actually, because you never know. Like I said before, you can stick to a ratio. Sometimes things don't go the way you want them to go. Yeah, they're almost there. Like I said, you could be making this. I was talking before about the dumplings and what gnocchi really means, which is dumpling. You could be making this with pumpkin, now that we're almost in season, or butternut squash. You could rice them. I like to actually do 30-40% of butternut squash and the rest still potato.
Oh, nice.
You can taste the pumpkin that way, and the potato gives it more structure because squash doesn't have a whole lot of starch to it. and those are delicious as well. If you're into chestnuts, like they are in the Apennines and the hills around Bologna, you can also make gnocchi with chestnut around November when they're in season. Maybe mix 20% of chestnut and 80% of potato. And those are delicious as well.
Okay, you guys, the online audience is now messing with me, I think, but also a good question here.
Yeah.
Chef, what is it like being a genius chef and while also being incredibly handsome? Who is that from? Matthew Bindert. Just
Oh my God. Matthew Binder. Matthew Binder is an ex-employee of mine, so I should disclose this. He's a super nice guy. I'm his fan. He's my fan, so that's why I'm saying that. He knows I'm not that. I don't look that good in photographs
I mean,
anyway. In pictures.
just telling the truth out here, Matthew.
Yeah, but hi, Matt. Hope you're doing well.
I mean,
I don't think I need to answer anything else. I don't consider myself genius. I actually, like I said, like you were saying before, I don't think as chefs we invent much. Even the people that think, work in kitchen and think they're coming up with this innovative recipe, most of the time somebody has done it 10, 15, 20 years before or 50 years before in a different location.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. We're not inventing anything.
Although I did find it interesting, so Francesco is one of the chefs in a book that I have coming out in December. Very exciting. Thanks. Finally. But I realized as I was asking about the specials and how they rotate by the seasons, you don't remember them all. Some of your servers do. Like Steph would remember year to year what you'd done, and she could remember like all of these different ingredients. You'd be like, oh yeah, I guess we did.
That's a course about having a terrible memory and having been open for 15 years. It's like after 2 years, I don't remember what I did 2 years before for specials, and I'm like, okay, maybe I even open a cookbook or I call one of my ex-employees and I figure out what I'm supposed to.
Like, what did I do? Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't remember.
So you're making this.
Yeah. So now if you're making baguettes at home, if you're having, like, we're doing the same motion. So we're trying to use our two ends to kind of make this roll smaller and smaller. We're making gnocchetti today, so even smaller than regular gnocchi. So we're gonna try to get these rolls actually a little smaller. It seems like the potatoes absorb enough flour. We don't want to
So you're
put
not
too
putting
much.
Too much flour there on
Not
the
too much,
okay.
because if you want to start sticking, we'll add a little bit. But otherwise, you're making gnocchi starchy and gluey, so which we don't want that. We need them to be nice and pillowy and soft. Of course, there is no proof until you put them in your water and see what happens. If they disintegrate, obviously there's something wrong. So we'll have to get to that at some point too. But otherwise, this is kind of the motion. And we're trying to get to. A
certain someone, you guys, commented. Now, we don't know them yet. It's not Matthew. They said, glad to see my dad in action, watching with the whole family.
Aww.
Come on.
That's very nice.
But also, Nancy has a question. Nancy said, what was the ratio of squash to potato if you decide to make squash?
I'll keep the butternut squash to maybe 30-40%, and the rest I would do potato. Like I said before, if you put too much squash, sometimes you get into trouble, so the amount of water will make a difference. So you want something that's flavored like butternut squash or curry squash, but it's not too watery. The water will screw around with how gluey and how hard to work is your dough at the end. So putting a little bit more potato than the squash will give the gnocchi the structure. The pumpkin or the squash will give it the flavor, but you're not running a risk of having a gnocchi that doesn't keep together in the water when you boil it. So.
And the curry squash is those dark orange ones?
Yeah, they can be orange, they can be green on the outside. The flesh is always orange inside.
Always orange.
Yeah,
and
we have a couple of farmers.
Hack them in half, roast?
Yeah, and the nice thing about curry squash also, not for this recipe, but the peel you can eat, so it's very thin skin. Not necessarily for gnocchi, you would have to peel them for that. But we like to buy the kabocha or curry from one of our farmers because we can just prepare them as they are. They get washed, we roast them, whatever else. We don't have to peel them though.
That's why I like delicata
Yeah,
squash.
yeah,
Especially this time of year, they're like this kind of in between squash where you can use the skin.
Yep. So what I'm doing is still the same motion, trying to make this little worm-like.
4 feet, 3 feet? How?
Yeah. Doing okay. We should make them, if you can, even smaller. But we're on a good spot right now. A little bit more flour so we can keep rolling the last one here. And then the next step will be essentially to start cutting them up. We'll do a little trial in the water. We'll make sure they stay together. Once that is done, we'll work and talk about our sauce.
If they are disintegrating, like if you test some and
Yeah.
they're disintegrating, how do you fix it?
The problems could be two. You probably didn't put enough egg. One extra egg will keep binding the potato and the flour together. So
Okay.
that might be a easy solution to fix them, but you would have to mix them all together again. And sometimes if they're a little watery, the solution is just to add a little bit more starch. So you would have a little bit more flour.
Got it, okay.
Yeah. All right.
This reminds me of, I was trying to figure out how to make strudel.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rolling
Yep.
of things. You like make it and then you like put all the giant, and then you,
You're very ambitious because we made strudel yesterday, but I don't make the dough anymore. The way
Yeah.
the traditional dough use puff pastry, which is super fast.
Yeah, well, there was a recipe, so all the recipes in the book I had to test, including all of yours.
Right.
And so you have a fennel dish in there, and then the insalata ricotta, which is a
Yep.
beef salad, really
Yep.
cool. But I had to test, I tested all of the recipes except for the burrata.
Okay.
I did not want to make burrata. I didn't want to deal with 5 pounds worth of cheese. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to trust that it's a good recipe.
Comes from me. It comes from me. It is.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I washed my hands quick. Of course, now I got a little bit of starch, but it wasn't as messy as it can be.
2, 3, 4, and 4-ish. What? So long. All right.
Can we fill this space with some advertising, some ads, some commercials?
Yes,
Can we do-
we'd like to
Okay.
thank our sponsors again. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. All right. So we'll clean this up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll just keep it in. It's natural. Okay, we got some questions though. Good timing, Aaron and Chris. Well, Aaron said, "Oh man, burrata! Can't wait for that book to come out." But Chris asked, diameter of about a
Diameter?
of about a quarter. I apparently can't say that.
I mean, maybe even smaller than that, actually.
Yeah,
like,
they're almost smaller. I mean,
look more like a dime,
yeah.
I would say.
And then, what is the name of the book?
I gotta get
Can
better
you
at
say
this.
that?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
It's Madison Chefs, Stories of Food, Farms, and People.
Yay! Oh my God, you guys!
It feels
Stop
very
it. All
weird.
these questions are coming in now. Sally's like, "What is the name?" We said it before.
Yeah.
But then also, Toy. We love Toy.
We love Toy.
We
Hi,
love
Toy.
Toy. Watches all the time. When can we pre-order Lindsay's book?
Oh my God. It's coming out in December because all the publishing delays. It was supposed to be this month, but publishing is all pushed back. So it's, I guess, December 21st, I think, is the actual publication date. But I don't know if you can pre-order it now. I should probably
I
know
think
that.
you can pre-order. What was it a Room of One's Own?
Yeah, Room of One's Own, you can pre-order. Room of One's Own, you can pre-order. I've been linking to all like the independent bookstores because I like those better. But yeah, UW Press.
Toy said, "Dear Santa." Like, oh, come on, the perfect holiday gift.
There are some fun recipes. There were some in there that I was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna
Like a
work,
little-
and then it did, and it was awesome. But there are recipes there from restaurants that have closed, like Four Quarter and Suzhou. So there's recipes in there from those. And the photos are
I'm
cool.
still open, huh?
Yeah, you are still open.
It's not a foreclosed restaurant on
Yeah.
Madison.
But no, I got to interview Alessandro,
Yes.
which was really fun.
Yes.
I got to interview like a bunch of your servers, and I just got to like hang out in the restaurant for a while, which was really nice. That was really fun.
Yes, that was a
So-
fun time.
Yeah,
And it was
and-
fun time at the farm too.
Yeah,
and
we went out
actually
to
my
the
kids
farm.
happened to be.
We went out to a beef
happened
farm.
To be there.
And Francesco's sons met all the cows.
Yeah, and the cows met them because they were like licking them like tail. Yeah, that was funny.
Lindsay, Toy wants to know. First, Toy said no doubt. Okay, and then are there going to be cocktail recipes too?
Oh, I don't think. I don't think there's a cocktail recipe. I was like, oh, my husband
Patrick's
remembers. He's
like,
like, no, there's
no.
no cocktail recipes in there. But now I'm thinking about it.
Toy said sequel, so that
sequel.
one sale from Toy.
Actually, that would be really fun, wouldn't it?
Great.
Madison's craft cocktail scene is coming up. And I've done some cocktail stuff at Papavero before. We did a vermouth one.
Oh.
Story about vermouth, all the different vermouths. It was with Marilyn. She did all these vermouth cocktails.
Good ideas
Yeah.
are born in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
The vermouth and the Amari at Papavero. I love Amaro.
Gail did comment that what you're doing over there looks so tender and pillowy.
It does look very
I
pillowy.
feel like I have to pass everything along.
Yeah.
So how big? They're like an inch maybe?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, about an inch.
About an inch?
Yeah.
So like a dime-ish in diameter and an inch.
That's really your choice how big you want to make them. I mean, the restaurant, we make them relatively small, pretty much like these ones. But, I mean, like I was saying before, gnocchi, different regions take different shapes and also take different sizes. In Italy, they're also called nolo in German. They do in the northern part of Italy.
Nodo?
Nodo.
Nodo.
Or canederli. Sometimes they're like this big. And you only get 3 per plate, otherwise it would be going home and going straight to bed after that. But yeah, that again, it depends where you are and depends what you order and what the local cuisine is.
I'm wondering how this dough is different than like halushki, which is from my Slovak tradition, or spetzel.
Well, spetzel, I believe you add a little bit of milk as well.
Okay.
If you remember correctly, or water.
Okay.
So, and that's why you typically grate them straight in the
Yeah, you grate them right into the water.
In the water, because you want to touch them, they're definitely more sticky than this dough
Yes.
would be. Yeah. So that's one of the differences. Also, although we have dishes that are actually very much like spetzel in Italy too. There's some they make in Sardinia where they basically get a food meal. You make a mix very much like spetzel. They use a food meal and they pass it through a food meal right into the boiling water. So, I mean, we have something very similar as well.
A food mill or a ricer is what you used to make the potatoes.
Right. So, food meal, potato ricer, vegetable ricer. People call it different names. Usually, the ricer has a little hand crank,
Like cranky, yeah.
and a different blades underneath, so you can cut your dough or your vegetables or your potatoes more or less coarse, depending on the blade. But that's all you need. There's also some that are just go like this. I don't know what you call them. They're still hand
Is it like a
operated.
push?
Yeah, it's like a push, almost like a giant garlic.
Like a garlic press, but
Garlic
for
press,
potatoes. Okay.
yeah, with potato. So those are some people in Switzerland use those for spätzle. So
Oh, yeah,
those
okay.
would be the ones I use. So those will work as well. We have just a slightly more technological, sturdy metal ricer in the kitchen, and those are pretty expensive, but you don't have to use those again.
Yeah, my grandma has a food mill, I think, had a food mill.
Yeah.
And it's different, like you only do the potatoes in the food processor mistake one time. Or the blender, where you're like, oh, it's concrete. I actually put that in the recipe. I was like, it will be potato concrete. You don't want that. But I thought maybe you could do it on a grater, but you said not really.
No, you can do it in a grater as well. I mean, the problem with the grater, you get like this coarse flake of potato, cooked potato, and it's a little harder to incorporate. And sometimes when you grate them that coarse, they don't get smooth even after you mix them with, by hand with the flour and the eggs. So you want something that's really rice fine to get the gnocchi texture. But sure, if that's all you have on hand, that can do as well.
Yeah.
Nancy, you guys. Nancy said that she just checked, or they just checked, Amazon does have Lindsay's book, and it can be pre-ordered with 1,000 exclamation points.
Oh my God.
They are excited.
Very nice.
Yes, but also buy local.
Did you know that, Lindsay?
But Eric does have a question. Does he have to cut up? Oh, okay. What's kind of a rude question? Does he have to cut up all of the gnocchi, or can we move on?
No, we can move on. We can explain that the reason why I'm cutting and using the time is because our water is not boiling for some reason. So that's
Eric.
why. So I'm using the time in a most productive way. Well, we can talk about the sauce, though. We don't have to be stuck with the gnocchi. We can,
The water is not boiling. That's
there we go.
correct.
Yeah, but we can start talking about the sauce and why we pick this sauce. So speck is something, it's essentially like a smoked prosciutto.
I'm going to bring it over and just
Yeah,
show
what speck looks like.
what it looks like.
Eric said very valid excuse.
Yeah, thank you. So
see
speck
it.
is a smoked prosciutto, and it actually comes from the same region I was mentioning before with the
behind
German dumplings or nolo. Comes from Trentino Alto Adige in the north.
Alto Adige with
You
a
could
vine.
use a prosciutto though. You could use a pancetta instead. You don't have to use smoked prosciutto. This you can actually find in Madison now. I believe I found some that was going to Cops for whatever reason, and I found some there. But I believe you found some other places in
Yes.
Madison. Again, if you don't find that, try prosciutto, try pancetta. Those will work just as fine. The reason why we pick radicchio is because it's kind of connected to speck. At least in Bologna, is used together often for pasta, but it's also because it's a seasonal vegetable. So that's October, November when you start getting the first different kinds of radicchio. Radicchio comes from the Veneto region. There are different kinds.
It's a
oblong.
chicory, right?
It's a chicory,
Yeah.
oblong or completely round. There's also one they call tardivo that comes with the first couple of frost. Tardivo. It's hard to find around here, but it's delicious because it's sweeter. It's left in the ground until you get the first two frosts typically, and once you get it out of the ground, since the vegetable to protect itself turns some of those starches into sugar, the tardivo is actually a radicchio that is not as bitter. Some people don't like bitter.
Ooh, yeah.
So, but this is a pretty tasty radicchio. It's the round kind that you find usually in grocery stores.
Yeah.
Cheryl did say that, FYI, Bavarian Sausage House is a great source for speck.
Ooh,
Oh,
nice.
okay, good to know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, speck really all speck means in German is ham. So but in Italy it just refers to the specific smoked prosciutto you find in that region.
You also mentioned that this is not one of the charcuterie types that you make in-house.
No, so I do have a lot of respect for the people at the craft of charcuterie and salumi making in Italy. There is at least two salumi we don't make in Papavero. One is speck because it is very elaborate in the amount of steps you have to go through to make it. It's a shoulder of the pig that gets boned, brined, herbed, hung, smoked, dried, and so it takes a lot of those steps. Plus, Madison, we're now in the Alps, so you're not getting, you cannot live. We don't live with, in altitude with all these specific herbs that are applied to the speck itself when it gets dried. I'm just doing a little trial run here. It looks like our gnocchi are working just fine.
So you had them in the water for how long?
2 minutes, but really for gnocchi, once they start floating to the surface of the water, you're good.
Okay, so they
So-
float to the surface of the water, and then
Yeah.
you're putting them in a pan with a little bit of oil.
Correct. This was just to try and to make sure they work fine. And I was saying about speck, so it's a little elaborate to make speck. We try to stay away from that preparation. Mortadella is another salumi, what a lot of people call Bologna here, that we don't make because that also takes an enormous amount of precision in grinding the meat, casing it, steaming it at the right temperature because there's only a few places in Bologna that do it correctly. So I'm not going to start stealing their craft and trying to make my own imitation, which is not going to be as good. All the other meats, though, we do a Papavero, so things like pancetta, coppa, capocollo, prosciutto, salami, chorizo, and so on, those things we make. So.
It's amazing that you fit them. I've been in this kitchen. It's amazing you fit them in there. Like, it's like this little, like a corner
Yeah.
of meat.
I wish we had a bigger place and a bigger walk-in, but we make it work for what it is, so yeah,
Nice.
for sure.
Suzanne is watching and said, why didn't you roll on a fork like my family does?
Oh, okay. Sure. That's a good observation. You can roll it on a fork. We will stay here for another extra hour, though. But there is actually an instrument that is actually the gnocchi graganelli. It's like a ridge little board where
Sure.
you actually push them. You can use a fork if you don't
Oh,
have
dang.
that. Garganelli are made in my region. It's a pasta that looks like essentially a macaroni with ridges. And you can do the same thing with gnocchi. And of course, because the gnocchi gets ridged, it helps pick up the sauce, which makes more sense when you're doing a sauce that is either a tomato sauce or a ragu or a meat ragu. In this case, not so much because there is no tomato that's going around the gnocchi trying to hang on to it. This is just the meat, a little bit of vegetables, then balsamic vinegar. So
Okay.
not so needed, really.
Good answer.
It looks like a thing you would use to like wash clothes almost.
But fork works perfectly, yeah. And we could certainly do that. I just don't want to go on my midnight.
What is this?
Little garlic.
All right.
So talking about the ingredients of the sauce, the speck is one, a little bit of oil in the pan, a little bit of garlic, and minced garlic will do. And I'm not gonna put a lot because I like garlic, but I don't like to go crazy. I'm not one of the best fan of things like garlic press sticks and all that. Garlic is good in moderate amounts. And so we're essentially gonna start sweating this speck in the oil. A little bit of olive oil, better if you have extra virgin. And we're gonna start slowly rendering. Speck doesn't have as much fat as...
This fire's on, but this one is not. There you go.
It's on now. As much fat as bacon, so you gotta be careful not to make the flame too high, so otherwise you're probably gonna burn it.
Got it.
Next thing that you need is the radicchio. We're gonna get to that. Once the garlic and the speck have sweat a little bit, we're gonna add our radicchio to the pan, and then balsamic vinegar to finish, to kind of make it come together as a sauce.
If you were going to hold these at this point, would you just toss them in some flour?
Yeah, so I would just take them up with the bench scraper, kind of like this. And I wasn't going as fast as I could have, but it's because we're starting to run out of flour a little bit here. There's not a lot of flour left, so. But yeah, this is basically what you would do. You would kind of roll them in the flour a little bit. Maybe put a cotton towel, like one of these, on top overnight so they don't dry out. And just keep them in your refrigerator, and that should be good enough to stretch them to the next day. All right, we're trying not to burn the garlic there, so we're gonna go relatively fast. A little bit of radicchio.
So this is just the radicchio. You remove the core and just chop it up nice and coarse?
Yep, and you kind of shred it like you would be shredding a lettuce, like iceberg lettuce for a salad, for example.
All right.
No difference. Radicchio will stay pretty sturdy when it cooks, but it'll still wilt a little bit. So we can actually let it cook a little bit. It's not a soft lettuce. So we'll keep the shape a little bit. The salt will help as well, making it wilt.
Toy said we need smell-o-vision. Every month almost he says this.
He's not wrong.
Well, he can invite you to come, Toy. Toy, comment with your... I'll message you. We'll get you to come in person. Look at me, Toy.
Okay.
This is somewhere Toy needs to come.
I love your initiative, Otelia. I love it. Yes, this is your moment. You gotta open the wine.
And then the next thing that will go in the recipe on the sauce is the balsamic vinegar. And we can talk about balsamic vinegar a little bit as well.
I just wanted to know if it's possible to fake good balsamic by using cheap balsamic and like reducing it.
Right.
It'll work.
Well, I'm not big on cheap balsamic. There is a reason behind that. Cheap balsamic usually is made by essentially taking a wine, acidifying the wine, so letting it sit when it starts turning into vinegar, and then adding a little bit of caramel color, so sugar, so it looks like a nice, rich, aged balsamic vinegar. That's not what a balsamic vinegar is. Balsamic vinegar comes from two specific provinces of Italy, Reggio Emilia and Modena. There is a protection for that product that goes to most European products. In Italy, it's either called DOP or EGP. That refers to how a product that belongs to a specific region or a specific province, or sometimes even a specific town. Balsamic vinegar is made by essentially taking all the leftover from squeezing the grapes. So the grapes will still be used to make wine, but you take everything else. So the skins, the seeds, and it basically boil it down and make it what is called a must, or grape must, so a mosto in Italian. That gets filtered, put into barrels, aged for typically 5 years, but it could be aged for 10, 15, 20. I think Bill Gates went to Italy a couple of years ago to buy one that was aged 100 years. It cost him like a fortune, but he can. buy it. So don't buy that. But usually 5 years you get a first batch of a finished balsamic vinegar. Every year that barrel is switched to a smaller barrel because of evaporation, the liquid is less and less. That actually is made with a different wood. So it's 5 different kinds of wood and barrels that are every year smaller and smaller because you have evaporation, you're concentrating that must as it ages. And that's a balsamic vinegar. After 5 years it's ready. So you want to buy something like it says EGP in the back or tradizionale, which means traditionally would have also this little symbol that you see there.
Up here so people can
This is the one that Bottura uses, the famous chef from Modena. Also says here Indicazione Geografica Tipica, which just means EGP, which means that it belongs to that specific terroir, to that specific geographical location. I could explain the DOP and the EGP longer, but we're going to be here all night, so I will skip that tonight.
These do cost a little bit more because the process is more intense.
Like, is that one?
Yeah, so it will be a little thicker because, like I said, it ages for 5 years, so it tends to evaporate the water and reduce into something that's thicker. If it's slushy, it's probably not an aged balsamic. It probably doesn't come from Italy. Even if it comes, I will stay away from it. Again, I understand for cooking, if you're using a lot of it, or if you're making salad every night, you're using balsamic, maybe you want to splurge with that every once in a while, not every night, but it's nice to have it around.
Yeah. I remember doing balsamic tasting where you have like a drop of it, like on your hand,
Yep.
like dosing something. I don't know. Yeah, an actual drug, totally.
All right, so it looks like we have our salsa essentially ready. I'm gonna add just a little bit of balsamic, a little bit more salt. Season the radicchio.
It looks caramelized. Almost.
Yeah, so the radicchio gets kind of the color of the balsamic as it wilts. That's a nice thing about it. You want a little bit of water to be in there. We're gonna steal some of the water from the pasta water, essentially, gnocchi water. There's a little starchy, so we'll build our sauce a little bit. And next thing is just to cook the gnocchi. Like I said, once they float, gnocchi are ready. You don't need to leave in the water longer. In fact, I wouldn't. You're probably gonna start falling apart.
So a couple
You do?
minutes.
A couple of minutes.
I can't help but make it's close to Halloween. They all float. An It reference? No. You remember an It?
No, I didn't watch it for reasons.
Happy Halloween, everyone! Thank you for watching Cooking with the Captain. It just came in, and I'm like, okay, we got a question, Suzanne. What salt do you recommend? She asked.
Oh, sea salt. This one is a great one. I mean, I hate to advertise French products, but you will make a couple of good products that are in Italy, like salt from Trapani or Cervia. Cervia is actually twice from Bologna in Italy. But this is La Baleine fine sea salt, which you find in a lot of places in Madison, like Orange Tree Imports is a place, I shouldn't say that, we're casting it here.
Orange Tree Imports is amazing though, and it's so nice.
So yeah, La Baleine fine sea salt is a great salt to use. We use it every day in the kitchen. I've been using it for 15 years cooking. I have no regrets about it, and if we keep on using it, and maybe I wouldn't just use that specific salt for salting my water, because it's a little expensive, but maybe for seasoning a salad, for sure. Yeah, so I would recommend it.
Yeah, nice. I feel like the cool thing about something like this is you can really adapt it to what veg you've got to put the gnocchi with.
Yeah, I mean, you can take the recipe in many different directions, like I was saying before, using different vegetables. We started actually using in our salumi, some of our vegetable scraps. I know it sounds crazy, but there is a lot of old recipes in Italy that call for integrating vegetables into your salami, for example, and that reduces the amount of pork that you're using. That probably goes down to the times where there was less money, maybe Second World War, First World War. So things like kale or turnips or things that are starchy in the fall and winter can be used to substitute some of the pork meat. There is also examples in Spain, like patatera is a chorizo made with potatoes, with very little pork in it. It's the same concept. So using more vegetables, using less meat, which I think is also very sustainable. It's a great idea. And we've been doing for a few years now, Papavero. So if you find some vegetables, salami on your Papavero, don't be surprised, because that's what we do.
It's sort of like my family makes yatrnici at Christmas, and it's a sausage that has a lot of rice in it to stretch it.
Yeah. They're all fillers, like morcilla in Spain. You put rice or potatoes, like you do in France for blood sausage. Yeah, it makes sense.
We do have a flour question from Uthi Ray, our talented visual journalist. What flour would you toss the gnocchi in if you wanted them to be gluten-free?
Cornmeal. You can use fine to coarse cornmeal, something in between. That will work really well. Actually, it keeps the gnocchi separated one from the other, and they don't glue together. So that's definitely an option. I don't know if I will use any other vegetable flour, but cornmeal works just fine. Yep. Maybe we're down to the last batch, and we can eat after.
Nice. And there's going to be cheese on this at some point, right?
There's going to be cheese. Of course, there's going to be Parmigiano because it comes from my region. A little bit of fresh herbs. We're going to put a little bit of chives just to finish it up, and then we should be all done.
Oh, with chives too.
Yeah,
for a little green.
A little green. Of course, you need it for. It's not just a garnish. I always say to my cooks that herbs are not garnish. Herbs are part of the recipe. And that the recipe will taste different because you have herbs in your dishes, and they always do.
I feel like I want to use a lot of herbs in the fall with my cooking, and it's just when the weather is turning so that maybe I'm not going to have them for very much longer.
So it's almost like a nostalgia thing. You're
more rosemary before it dies.
Sure. That makes sense. All right, I feel like we're ready.
Yeah, what to do with sage? Actually, sage would probably be really good in this.
Yes.
Mike did jump in and ask, what wine do you recommend pairing with this?
With this? Well, I have wine expert at my restaurant. The people around the bar now, we have some pretty solid people. Me, I always stay geographical, so I would pick a wine from my region. I think Lambrusco would be just fine with this gnocchi. It's a little sparkly, it's not so dry, so why not?
Good question.
I'm team Nebbiolo from.
Sure. I'm just biased in the sense I prefer to match wines that come from the same region where the food comes from, but people I know have different opinions. The food is all about opinions and a different taste, right? So you can, every person has a different palate and a different idea what they like or what they think they should go together. So I never criticize that. It's important that.
Lambrusco has gotten really good in recent years, actually. I feel like it used to be just sort of sweet and bubbly and not that interesting.
Yeah.
But we've had, at Andrea at Square, has some amazing Lambruscos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andrea does a great job, and I'm glad she's still around. And then even for Lambrusco used to be one of those wines like Chianti in the 70s, where if you came from Italy, you had to be in the flask,
With the basket.
all the stereotypes.
Yeah.
But even for Lambrusco, there are different kinds, and nowadays they make wonderful Lambrusco. And there is dry, there is sweeter, there's more sparkly, so it depends really which direction you want to go. Would you help me with the herbs and the cheese? So this will be the last thing. We're going to use a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to sprinkle on this gnocchi.
Toy said, yes, Lindsay, I just transplanted my rosemary to bring inside to see how long it will last. It is getting to be time for sweater weather and lamb roasts.
Oh my gosh.
It's a little bit of delay on the online viewers, but yes, time to get cozy.
I have tried to bring my rosemary in, but the cats see any plant in the house as they're curious and then they want to dig in it and then they want to knock it over, and it's just so I have to choose between cats or herb longevity.
Right.
They always win.
Yeah. The cats win every time.
All right, what are we doing here?
A little sprinkle of Parmigiano and a little sprinkle of chives.
There's two. This 6 2.
I feel like the first time I started assisting with demos, I just like forgot my own name. Like I was like, I don't know how to do anything. Like, can you do this very simple thing? No, I don't know. Right? Also, I feel too short for this.
Maybe should I put the place I should put a little closer.
It's okay. No, it's all right.
That's all right.
My first job at a bagel shop, I wasn't allowed to cook the bagels because I was too short. There's a height limit.
I have a connection with bagels. I can talk to Joseph and about some bagels if you want.
He had a Kenny from Montauk special today on the Gotham menu. I had to go get it. It was very good. Lobster on a bagel? Yes, please.
I see that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Why not?
Oh, it's not very beautiful. You guys gotta forgive me. All right. I love the green. I love a little pop of color on it or anything. All right.
I cannot.
Okay.
It almost looks like I do every night, huh?
Oh, I do need a stool.
Just like, give me that.
Okay, I think we're good.
All right. Gorgeous.
So, enjoy.
Thanks. How's it look?
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I love that when there's like big chunks of Parmesan, like, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Like it.
We'll take these two. Yeah.
Enjoy.
Cheers, you guys. Thank you so much for doing this. I don't know how we are on
absolutely.
time. Are we doing okay?
Yeah, it's 6:52. So
Oh my gosh.
Perfect time.
We're doing great.
I don't have spec, but I have a little relicchio, so I can make a few more for somebody who's hungry. yeah?
Nice. I love it. I love
All
it.
right, I can't
Thank
go
you.
with
So tell people where they can find Papavero, where they can find more like this.
Well, Papavero is on 128 East Wilson. We've been there. Actually, August was our 15th birthday.
15th
or
birthday,
anniversary.
nice. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I think we're still going strong. We have a nice staff. We went through some, replenishing the staff that was leaving, new people. But I think we're in very good spot. I think we have some talented people both at the bar now and in the kitchen. So
Nice.
we're looking forward to this next year. Hopefully, we'll be better than what last year was. But we've seen a lot of customers coming back. It's been great. It's been totally supportive, totally happy to be around. Great comments on food and drinks. So just come and see me. A block from the square. I'm there. Friday and Saturday, I'm there all day, 16 hours a day, more or less. Come and see us.
Yes, Papavero, the Italian Shack. I love it.
And let's see, who was that? Chris got in a last-minute question. Best place to find the good balsamic?
Well, I don't think Cassidy sells food products, so just go to Orange Tree Imports. I think you can dig something out. They always have something good, or EGP, like I said, Tradizionale from Modena. You should be able to find something like that. They will for sure have this Manodori vinegar. Like I said, they're used by a lot of chefs, so give it a try.
I feel like alimentari is also going to be...
Alimentari, yeah, I didn't, sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize because Dan Bonanno is my friend, so go to Alimentari.
Dan.
I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't mention you, but yeah, Alimentari for sure.
Yeah. And would Fraboni's have it, I wonder, too? Like in Monona? Potentially.
Potentially, yeah. That's another place to give it a try, too. Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you for this. This is amazing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody that came tonight.
Yay,
So,
thank you.
And before we sign off, we just want to thank our sponsors one more time. Starting this month, our presenting sponsor is Provision Market by Pasquale's Cantina. You can find that newly opened market on East Wash. And Birra Lucana Premium, thanks to Wisconsin Distributors, to be our beer sponsor for this event series. And of course, Kessenix is our official kitchen sponsor. So thank you guys all for coming. We had Epicurean Chronicles here this evening. Yay! Yay! And we had Otelia here this evening as well, newly rebranded. You can find her on Instagram at Otelia Travels. Holla. And of course, you can find Epicurean Chronicles as well on Instagram and Facebook and all the places, right, you guys? Yep. Yay.
Thank
Yay. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay.